Please introduce yourself. Huh?
So, Aybek Shaykhov, I'm the Secretary General of European Uzbekistan Association for Economic Cooperation for Business. Are there any mechanisms in place for third-party monitoring of the progress of that the government is setting out in this agenda? So, or does the government rely only on internal capacity? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in terms of third-party monitoring, if you mean NGOs, then of course we have a development strategy center, which they do this kind of monitoring, and we are just a think tank, but as a government, they report quarterly and maybe even monthly about the reforms done and things accomplished to the center as well. But also we rely a lot on mass media and the journalists in this aspect, because at the end of the day, when you have this accountability, as you mentioned, so there is a specific schedule of having scheduled press briefings and meetings with mass media, which also gives you, I would say, a positive pressure to perform. And on the other hand, we have lots of international organizations as well, which are now present in Uzbekistan, and you also have lots of interaction with them. We explain how we see things and how we evaluate them, and you have this feedback on how they see things. On the other aspect, we're also putting lots of efforts on this independent evaluation of reforms. For example, similar as it is very similar in international financial organizations. For example, at the World Bank and ADB, you have what's called independent evaluation group or independent evaluation unit, where there is a part of organization which reports directly to the president or to the board of directors, and they have quite impartial evaluation of this. In this aspect, for example, we can see that maybe it's not like third party, but Chamber of Audit, for example, from time to time it also conducts its own analysis about how things are done. And so I think this would serve as a good monitoring and accountability mechanisms. But on the other hand, I think it's quite, one thing is to evaluate how things are and how they could be done better. On the other hand, how to design the mechanisms which will make sure that the message which you want to do, the actions which you want to do, that really penetrates to all levels. And in this aspect, one of the new thing is I would call what we in Uzbekistan call governor's assistant. It's kind of a new mechanism, how it works. For example, we have information, everything is over here, but imagine an agent which is present here, and he just goes to each of you and explains all the opportunities in terms of how could I say, what kind of credits you can get, what kind of loans you can get, and what kind of opportunities you have from the government if you want to learn, what kind of free of charge services do you have. So we created this system, now we're calling it Assistance of the Governors. It's more than 10,000 people across Uzbekistan. They all do the monitoring of the people in their own small districts. This district is called Mahalla. So in a sense, in the previously you have this high name programs and all these plans, and then you execute it at the ministry level. Now this mechanism, which was created less than 2 months ago, you have these people, they all go, they cover for themselves around, let's say, 2,000 people or 3,000 people, and one person goes to almost each house and explains, okay, this is the difference, this is the update, this kind of opportunities you have if you want to study, if you want to get a job, look around. And so this is, it kind of serves as a catalyst for these reforms. And at this level, you can already see the people who kind of gives their feedback, and we can see what is working and what's not working. And now I just reminded about this third-party monitoring. We can talk about the World Bank. The World Bank's program, Listening to Citizens of Uzbekistan. They do this survey on a monthly basis. They evaluate, okay, how reforms are affecting people. They have this baseline estimates, and you have this end-line estimate. You can do what we call the DID analysis, the difference in difference, for example. What was happening, this especially helped during the pandemic, what's happened before and what's happening after, how this transition is going on. But I agree that we need more of this. For example, when we look at Germany, they have, for example, IFO, Institute for the Forecasting, and they have a business climate index, which gives you almost real-time feedback about how businesses are responding to specific change. For example, you give this information about increase of the minimum wage or decrease in the minimum wage, and you look how businesses are responding So this is a very valuable tool. The same with employment barometer. For example, you can ask the enterprises, okay, what is your expectation for the next 3 months? Are you going to hire more people or less people? And then you can seek the feedback and use it in the policy making. In central bank, usually this is called market reaction function. Of course, we need more of this, and to do that, specific, how could I say, funding and specific partners is also very important in this aspect. Okay, hopefully.
Please, anybody else? All right. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, my name is Leila Batirbekova. I'm representing Traseka, Gazer in 13 countries, and this is very. Let's say it's this new strategy, how it's described, covering a lot of areas, and which is, of course, the most, and undoubtedly the civil rights and the law. But if we will move more to trade, commerce, and transportation, how is it covered? Maybe it's in third pillar to develop a robust national economy, because I'm actually originally from Kazakhstan, and we are a landlocked country as well. So I just would like, if you have anything, any insights to share, how about transportation and how it will be also growing together with the cargo flow. Thank you.
May I start? Okay, thank you very much. Related with transportation, we understand the importance of transportation, and for this you need to have a good infrastructure. And as I mentioned, the plan is actually including in itself building 70,000 more kilometers of the highway. So this helps to the movement of goods and the services of also the people as well. And on the other hand, it's also related with internet connection as well, because I think it was at the Heathrow airport, if I'm not mistaken, in future the goods will be transmitted, not transported. Yes, so we're moving to the digital economy. In terms of trade, as you might know, Uzbekistan got this status of GSP+, so we can export majority of goods. I think it was 6,600 goods on zero tariff to EU. But it doesn't mean that we are already capable of doing this. So we need to find the taste of the European consumer. We need to work more on in terms of improving the quality, in terms of packaging and monitoring. And there are also some other aspects which were related to this. And in this aspect, maybe I can also return to Ulbek's question about third-party monitoring related with labor. Of course, recently it was announced that Uzbekistan is fully free from forced labor. It was actually approved and announced by international labor organizations as well. So this is another, how could I say, a good, positive change. And in terms of cargo and transportation, yes, this is important, and I think that developing regional roads, and both in the frame of BRI and in frame of our bilateral roads is also taken into account. But another point which was mentioned already by Ilderek is also the diplomacy of trade. This economic diplomacy. This also makes a big difference. And also, if we can pay attention, for the last years, we are developing cross-border production as well, which also contributing to trade. Not maybe directly, but also indirectly as well. On the other hand, we understand that infrastructures and building transportation corridors, both in terms of PPP, is quite important. But on the other hand, we need to do very careful both ex-ante and ex-post evaluation as well. Because as an infrastructure specialist, when we did analysis of Tashkent-Azerbaycan-Kumkurgan railway, which is located in Uzbekistan, and connecting with the current railroad in Afghanistan, we can see that it affects positively the economy. It affects positively each specific sector. For example, in services sector, it gives high return, then followed by manufacturing, and then a little bit low in agricultural sector. But also, usually you do not see that positive impact is the exact location of infrastructure as well. So it is kind of dissipated across the whole system of the railroad. So in that aspect, we want to make sure that each infrastructure project which we look at, it has a beneficial, how could I say, economic impact to all parties. This is actually extremely important, especially when you have limited resources. Again.
So my understanding, Alberto, Olivier. Yep.
Voilà. My name is Olivier Riffon. I am a researcher at Diplomatic World, and the question is, Mr. Tolyakov, I point out your goal 98 about the accurate image of your country. Can you precise what do you mean by accurate image? And will your country accept non-governmental actors to contribute to that accurate image?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. This is very important because we should note that due to the lack of information, for example, in the past, in the world indexes, Uzbekistan's position was not appropriately stated because these agencies, of course, search for information, but because they face certain problems when getting those informations, the positions of Uzbekistan in these world indexes was not accurate. Now, because of the openness policy being carried out in Uzbekistan, each ministry is publishing lots of information on their websites, on their social networks. They are on daily basis reporting on these important achievements on media, on TVs. We even have special venues. These are different venues, state venues, NGOs, and third-party venues where state officials come and report to the audience, which are live, which are transmitted to many other institutions. So, which means because of this flow of information, now those who are evaluating the efficiency of reforms and because of the availability of the main statistics of the reforms, these international organizations are assessing, their assessments are much accurate currently. This is important to increase the positive image of Uzbekistan. Additionally, whenever they need more information, be it a researcher, be it any other person who is interested in Uzbekistan, they ask directly these institutions what kind of information they need, and they are provided with this information if they can find it online, because now most of the information is available online. Therefore, this is a work which will be carried out in a complex way, not only by ministries, not only by embassies, for example. Of course, it needs a complex approach, including the friends of embassies, including the friends of ministries, be it an expert, be it an ordinary citizen of a certain country. This will be done through that. Then, of course, tourism, building a tourism-friendly country, initiating projects like Ambassador of Tourism, for example. This also affects on the positive image of Uzbekistan. And the reforms, like opening up to the world, abolishing visa requirements to enter Uzbekistan, is another very practical aspect of this positive image making. And Uzbekistan is ready to cooperate with many other institutions, be it private, be it governmental, towards reaching this goal, this making positive image. So that's why this is another opportunity that we could cooperate, especially taking into consideration your activities as a diplomatic world magazine. We would be happy to go further and do more paperwork, homework on these aspects to positively affect the image of the country. Thank you.
Please.
Yes, Alberto from Diplomatic World and the Brussels-Uzbekistan Friendship Group. Two questions. First, in terms of addressing global challenges, could you briefly comment on the role of Afghanistan in Uzbek foreign policy in this new phase? And second question, you state in the slides that you intend to deepen integration processes with the Eurasian Economic Union. Does that mean that you're seeking to upgrade from observer to full member?
Thank you. Thank you for these important questions. Yes, in our strategy, there are priorities in terms of Afghanistan, just like you mentioned. Afghanistan is our neighboring country. Of course, the regime has changed there, and we should note that the country looks at Afghanistan as at the nation of it as a brotherly nation, and therefore Uzbekistan is very much interested in the peace in Afghanistan. That's why Uzbekistan is working with many other international community, foreign partners, foreign states to stabilize the situation in Afghanistan, because otherwise there would be other negative effects. If, for example, world community does not support Afghan people, they may switch, let's say, to overcome the poverty, to overcome, let's say, the food security that they really need for their people. They may switch to other negative, let's say, negative directions to support their own nation. That's why Uzbekistan is positioning itself as a negotiator for assisting the people of Afghanistan to stabilize the situation, to keep the peace in Afghanistan. And Uzbekistan has also hosted several important talks, several important conferences on Afghanistan issue, and very importantly, world community supported these events in Uzbekistan, organized by Uzbekistan's government, and important, of course, agreements were reached during those events. That's why, once again, Uzbekistan is interested in the peace in Afghanistan, in the stabilization of there. That's why it is asking the world community not to leave Afghanistan alone. Otherwise, there could be humanitarian problems, there could be poverty, there could be a very stagnation, and this could, in the end, affect negatively, not only towards Uzbekistan, but to the region and to the world. This is a world problem. And as for the Eurasian Economic Union, of course, as a goal 97, it is stated that integration, it will deepen integration processes, the country. The president has specifically said that this is a priority of the Uzbek parliament, whether or not we want this membership to this union. And as a result, lots of parties, be it private, be it governmental, they are doing research on the positives, negatives of joining to this union. And they are regularly submitted to the parliament, to the government, so that they can assess these outcomes very deeply. And they are, of course, this issue is openly debated on TV between members of the parliament, between government officials, between activists. So there are different views back in Uzbekistan. And therefore, we think the parliament, it is right, that it was a right decision that parliament, the members of they are the representatives of the people, therefore they will decide. But, of course, due to the recent changes, this is another challenge to do more research on the on joining this union. So there will be even more now research on which will include these new changes happening currently, and the parliament will take the last decision. But what we should note that in this goal, it specifically stated that Uzbekistan is willing to get the membership, WTO membership. It's specifically stated, but it is still considering joining the Eurasian Economic Union. So If you want to add, yes.
Yeah, thinking before joining or deepening the integration with specific organization, we also think, and also from the economic point of view as well. For example, the supervisor of my professor, he's now Yoshino in Japan, but his supervisor was Sir Alan Walters. He was an economic advisor to Margaret Thatcher, and he always was explaining me that he was kind of against of Britain's joining to the EU, and he was lots of proposals about that. At that time, he was not right. After the Brexit, it seems he was right. So it depends. There are different analyses. So similar with EU, there are different think tanks doing their own analysis. For example, the German economic team, they also have provided their kind of analysis, and you can see sector by sector differences, what kind of impact it will be. So our main aim is to make sure that, of course, we want competition, we want improvement of the quality of the goods, and you want free movement of goods and services and labor across the region. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that it is comes with minimum shock and with maximum benefits. So to do that, we need all different types of analysis. There are some analysis which shows specific sectors going to win, but specific sectors will go through pain. So you want to also minimize that. So at least you need to get prepared. You need to make sure that some mitigating measures are there, and the wisdom is there, and how to get those things right. And as Elrika mentioned, you need to constantly update and you constantly correct your assumptions which we are making, whether it will be computer general equilibrium modeling, whether it will be GTAP, or whether it will be just a gravity model. You always need to make sure that you start with weaker assumptions, and then you want, with strong assumptions, and you want to make them weaker and weaker and more realistic. And at the end of the day, provide very close to realistic pro and cons, so that Parliament and decision makers will do some critical analysis and then make their choice. So that's why, as you mentioned, it might take a little bit more time, and as many parties will be involved, the better it is, because the truth will be revealed to many. Yeah.
Yes, please. Mike? Nika. Roy, you are the next. Okay.
Nick Powell from EU Reporter. You talked earlier in the presentation about Mahala, which, as I understand it, is the traditional idea of the community to which one belongs. Could you perhaps say a little bit more about its importance to the Uzbek sense of identity, and also how and why you see it playing such an important role in bringing popular participation and support for the plans that you have been outlining?
Thank you. Thank you for asking this question, because Mahala, Institute of Mahala, is important for Uzbek community. Why? It's because Mahalas are self-governing bodies. We say they are very much independent from the state bureaucracy. But we should note that Mahala has needed more power, be it the power, financial power, be it the power to contact people, to solve the issues of the community. Mahalla is the very bottom level of the community. In Uzbek, as a tradition, whenever they have a problem, whenever they have an issue, they don't really want to openly say it, especially to the ministry. They don't want to address it to the ministry level, to the official level. They are very much interested in solving this issue by themselves or by the people, by the neighbors only. So they don't want it to go public, because there are other consequences based on the tradition, based on the culture of Uzbek people. They are very shy, I would say. So that's why President noted the importance of increasing the potential of Mahalla Institute. If people are coming to Mahalla to get a solution to their problem, then this institution should have a financial power, support of the state to resolve that issue momentarily. And they need power so that if the people themselves are not able to address it to the, let's say, ministry level, so that the chairman of Mahalla is able to address it. Because there are some issues that need let's say, the involvement of more higher officials. Therefore, this system is now closely monitored by the government, and this system is there to be developed within this new strategy. And there are lots of priorities in strengthening the role of mahalla, like economic development, because every mahalla is specific, every mahalla is unique. Some mahalla specialize in textiling, some mahalla specialize in let's say, in the agriculture or in other aspects. So the state is willing to identify those driver sectors of those mahallas and support specifically those sectors financially, so that those people who specialize in certain type of activities, they get a financial support from the state. So that's in general what we meant by reforming the Institute of Mahalla. Thank you.
If I may add, in terms of focus level, I think Mahalla gives us a better granular focus level, because if you look at the district, if it's a cell, Mahalla is like an atom. It's a smaller, and it's more like, as Lurka mentioned, it's easier for people the common wisdom to understand who's actually in need and who has what capability, and it's much easier to do that reform at that level. And as I mentioned, related with Mahalla, there is a new mechanism of governor's assistant is take place. So imagine one person, he will be responsible for distributing all the necessary information related with poverty reduction, related with specific free courses, which are specific knowledge which is required in today's labor market, with 1,000 families, for example. I think for him, when it's his full-time job, this is something which he can do and focus. If one mayor of the district, he has, for example, 42 mahallas, for him it's physically very difficult to do so, especially with his relatively small apparatus. But here we have around 10,000 assistants of governor, and then if I pedantically and punctually every day I go up and I understand, okay, in this mahalla for which I'm allocated, there are around 100 families which can work hard and which can improve themselves only if the information, for example, related with legislation and everything, communicated to them in a simple, plain language which they can understand, and their awareness of the new opportunities which is created by the strategy, by the new reform, is improved, then it's easier to work with them. So this governor's assistants, they serve as a catalyst at the mahalla level. And personally, at the Institute for Forecasting and Macroeconomic Research, we also choose one mahalla, just for the sake of actually going through this. Like in Japanese, there is a concept of gemba, being there and being at a place. So we just choose this mahalla. It's called Jorobot Mahalla. So people live there. And when we talk about, for example, green economy, and I went there and I'm talking with people, so it's not something abstract concept. So we decided to install a water boiler, solar water boiler at the school of this mahalla. So now all these kids which go from this mahalla to the school, they use this hot water which is boiled through the solar panel, and then they can go home and they explain to their parents, okay, look, at our school we have this solar water boiler, and then it works without electricity, and this something, there is magic is working. And then their parents, they also will think, okay, so how much it costs? It's not so much expensive, it's so they can buy it, or why is a loan or credit? So instead of just writing it somewhere as an abstract terms and then just distributing it, we're just doing it by, how could I say, doing. I think it's in Bible, in the Goethe's Faust, at the beginning it says, in the beginning there was a word, and then he crosses and says, in the beginning there was a work or deed, act. So it's a very similar thing. So we're saying, okay, let's do the work, let's do something practical, and then this will itself serve as an example, and it will reach at the mahalla level. Because at mahalla, we are like neighbors. One person talks to another person, then he's to the third person. It's very easy to reach people at the mahalla level. So I think this might work, and we're also already being contacted by world-leading universities, both from the US and from other places, which are very interested in this experience and how this will work out. So I think maybe give us like 5 years. I think it will be a very interesting case from Uzbekistan, how this helped to eradicate the poverty. Yep.
My understanding, Roya, you want to ask some question?
name is Roy Lee. I'm from Diplomat Magazine in The Hague. I want to start by telling you how pleasurable it is to see the enthusiasm with which you present the program. It's a very ambitious program, and I see the enthusiasm that you have makes it so lively. I have two small questions. The first one is, what is your assessment of the current world situation? Might it impact your program? I don't know if you have thought about it. And the next question is, point number 5. Point number 5 on the sheet I have here. Does this include religion? Does this include is it a kind of an open invitation to outside religions which are not yet there to come to, that they can have free movement in Uzbekistan? Do I see it right?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your feedback. Of course, this is a strategic document. Before it was adopted, it was assessed by experts, by our internal experts, by external experts. This was, let's say, forecasts are also inside this document, and therefore, just like in other parts of the world, what's happening currently is shaping the economies, the policies of other countries also. That's why it's a challenge for Uzbekistan for its new strategy, and it will affect. But Uzbekistan it will affect on which terms? It will affect, for example, in terms of migration policy of Uzbekistan, for example. That's why in this strategy we also have foreseen these aspects. For example, because we say in goal 86, pursuing safe, orderly and legal labor migration and effective migration policy is another goal to make the consequences of these changes happening in the world easier. So these type of issues, of course, will be closely monitored. The strategy is adaptable. It will be consulted later if the world changes later again. This is what I want to say. And then, as for the religion issues in goal 74, the state is willing to reach this goal because it says encouraging an atmosphere of inter-ethnic harmony and inter-religious tolerance in society. Uzbekistan is a country with more than 130 nationalities, and accordingly there are people with different religion, and Uzbekistan is carrying out measures so that they can have a real religious freedom, because in Uzbekistan religion is separated from the government. Therefore, there are much, let's say, facilities and opportunities to exercise this freedom of religion in Uzbekistan. There are no any restrictions towards that. That's my short answer to your questions.
I think basically, Ulrich answered all the points. Of course, you're right. All the things which are happening around the world will affect Uzbekistan. It's for sure. It's not only because now it's globalization, but it was always so. For example, my grandfather, he was living in Namangan. It's kind of a small town in Uzbekistan, and he has no.
Actually, it's the second biggest town.
Thank you. Thank you. So, and he was not aware of what was happening during the Second World War, but it somehow affected that place. He was just baking his bread, and then he went to war, and he participated in the war in 1943, and he was injured in October of 1943, and he was rewarded, and he came back. So everything affects everyone from that time. And you're right in this aspect. We're also envisaging this. For example, from the previous shocks, you can, first of all, of course, you will think about the food security. So in that aspect, what we're doing is there was a 200,000 hectares of which were given for the cotton. Now it's moved for the vegetables and for other aspects. So we're ensuring that. And also another point is related with the local capital market as well, because there is estimate that the people have as savings more than $10 billion, but it needs to be converted to a capital market because they somehow keep it under the pillow. So we want to create a system where it actually helps for economy to grow. And maybe the third point, which I already mentioned, there is of course specific targets for poverty reduction, and based with the training and based with synchronization of the knowledge which are given at the universities and colleges to the one which is required by the world market. Because now there is a trend for digitalization, and you can have a young person who can just stay maybe with his parents and still work remotely in decent markets. So this can also have also some mitigating impact as well. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, okay.
Which events you are proposing to invite people in coming months and this year? What is important to attend for the audience of the EU and the neighboring countries? Quite very important.
Uzbekistan has recently hosted a huge conference on terrorism issues. Several hundred people came from all over the world. Next upcoming huge event is Tashkent Investment Forum on March 24-26. This is more business, of course. Then there will be another event in the mid of summer on connectivity issues, because Uzbekistan has been initiating lots of this type of projects on connectivity, the building a neighborly, safe countries surrounding Uzbekistan. That's why connectivity conference will serve to that issue. These are the main ones upcoming.
Yeah, and if I may, on 27th of May, we are also planning to have this big international forum. It will be related to poverty reduction strategies. So poverty reduction strategies. So it will be good, how could I say, place to exchange experiences. For example, we have some good successful cases from China, from other places. So it will be interesting to share those experiences and how it worked and why it worked. In some, for example, if you look at Banerjee and Duflo's books, they had many experiments, but then you have this, how could I say, some factors which were contributing at that place. And they sometimes difficult to just take them as a separate entity and implement in other place. But when we gather and when we discuss it, something new might come out of it. Second is in October this year, our institute, we will hold our usual economic forum for Uzbekistan, and this time the topic will be green economy. As it was mentioned, was one of the major parts for the new strategy covers the green economy, and in this aspect, as an institute, we established a green hub recently. What we're doing it as green hub is we're just accumulating everything related to green economy in Uzbekistan. So it will be at one place. You can reach it, this information. What was the need for this is because I realized that many different organizations across different sectors, they do similar things, but they don't interact with each other. There is no coordination. So we decided why don't we fill the gap, and we create one green hub which will collect all the TA results of all the technical assistance, results of all research in one place, and which will be available for conversion to reality. And we can have this spectrum from all the theoretical aspects, for example, let's say at the level of Jean Baudrillard's simulacra and simulation related with green economy, and on the other aspect it will be something very practical, for example the number of enterprises which actually involved in green economy. So we want to dedicate this forum in October to green economy. Yeah, it covers all aspects of economy related with agricultural sector. For example, we had this forecast about greenhouse gas emissions, and we do some actual estimates. It's related with electricity and its electricity generation and how could I say, improving the electricity efficiency. And also it has to do with our estimates of how carbon border adjustment mechanism affects the trade and at what aspects and what is the magnitude and what is the probability. We have some estimate about that as well. So we want to really focus on this, and we want to gather all the wisdom which is done related to two contexts. One is green economy in context of Uzbekistan. Maybe in the future, if we can also interact, we can increase it, make it larger for Central Asian economies as well, because I understand that in Europe people like to look at our region as more like a Central Asia, bigger region. So this might be our next step as well. Thank you.
Well, if there are no any other questions, maybe last words from me. For any potential explanations, there are some handouts. You must probably see them. I would like also ask the audience to give good round of applause to our speakers. It was a wonderful presentation, one of the best on my mind and my memories. Thank you so much. Last, the invitation for the cup of the Uzbek tea. So thank you.